Okay, we are ready.
Okay, this is the Monday, June 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee. It is 5:33 in the evening. Mr. Newell, please take roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think you misspoke. It's June 21st, AAC 2021.
What did I say? I'm sorry.
June 22nd.
June 21st.
June, yes. So roll call. Member Thompson is excused. Member Walsh,
Here.
Member Paline,
Here.
Member McCoy,
Here.
Member Lockyer,
Here.
Member Dozy is also excused. Vice Chair Rotman.
Here.
And Chair Jakeway.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Could we have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair and committee, the staff or the agenda was published on Thursday, June 16th. Excuse me, Wednesday, June 16th, to get my dates correct. And so our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? And before we talk about that, I think Mr. Newell has a revision.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just suggest that we take item number 3 off of the consent calendar. That is the Dyer residence on Camino Calidad, 585 Camino Calidad, because there is a staff condition that the committee should consider.
Okay, so we'll make that the first item of new business. Any other changes from the staff or the committee to the agenda? Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
I so move.
Second.
Second from, a motion from John and a second from John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time that that item is presented. If somebody would like to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, please let yourself be known. Okay, it looks like there are none, so we will proceed to the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any revisions to the minutes of the meeting of June 7th, 2021?
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Rotman.
on page 4, the first paragraph, there's a typo. It says Vice Chair Rotman agreed with Chair Rotman. I think
I
that
had
should be
that same
Chair
comment.
Jakeway.
I think that'll be changed to say Vice Chair Rotman agreed with Chair Jakeway. Any other comments or changes? Do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, Mr. Rotman, second.
Mr. Chair, before we get into that, we do have 2 items on the consent calendar. We have the June 7th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, so in addition to the minutes, we have number 2, approval of a request by FLWR Company Dispensary and Lounge for one sign at 46 square feet placed on the existing monument sign of the cannabis dispensary located at 577 East Sunny Dunes Road. Item number 3 has been removed from the consent calendar. So now do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I so move.
Mr. Rotman, a second? All second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So we will now proceed to unfinished business. CBM 2 Hotels LP for a minor architectural application proposing facade modernization and addition of an 864 square foot fitness center at the Courtyard by Marriott Hotel. I own property within the 500-foot radius of this project, so I will be recusing myself from this and ask that member Rotman chair this particular item.
Okay. Do we have a staff report?
Mr. Chair, if you'll give me just 1 minute, I don't see the staff member presenting this item on the call. So,
Should we delay this for a later time?
oh, no, I understand he's jumping on the call right now.
Okay.
Just give us 1 more moment. Mr. Lyon, it is your turn to present.
Great. Apologize for being late. So this is a restudy that has come back to the AAC a couple of times. And as you can see in the staff report, they've made some improvements and some followed the suggestions that the AAC had. In our recommendation on this, the only thing that we're really looking at now that we thought might need some additional attention compared to the recommendations from the AAC is possibly a more naturalized or curvilinear transition between the new desertscape and the turf areas on the site. We've also suggested along the easterly boundary of the property where there is additional new landscaping proposed, that they provide basically a simple concrete edge or border between their property and the adjoining property, which is in pretty rough shape, and I think would give a better demarcation and edge condition for their new landscape. But as you can see from the materials and the graphics, they have revised many aspects of the project. They've moved the mechanical equipment off the roof of the fitness center and brought that roof more into the same basic shape and configuration that you see on the existing hotel. The mechanical units were brought down to the ground, and they're located on the north side of that little building behind a screen wall and some additional landscaping that's there. You'll also see on the bottom of page 3 a couple of still images from some computer simulated graphics that they did in order to demonstrate the solar impact in the fitness center. As you can see there is still sunshine that does enter into the space in the mornings and evenings, but it does have a fairly short period of time that it is entering into the space. You can also see that again on the top of page 4. On the front facade, I think is where the most of the improvements can really be understood and appreciated. They've reduced the height of the new facade that was going across the front in that very dark color, and they've also lightened that color up a bit, which allows the original hip roofs to actually be a little bit more prominent and integrated with that new facade. On page 6, you can see some of the landscaping work that's been proposed. There were some comments at the earlier AAC meeting about trying to provide some additional landscaping on the south facade of this new fitness center. And because of the proximity to the spa and still leaving enough room on the northerly side to screen the mechanical in the wall there, they've opted to basically keep the landscaping in those areas, but they've also added some landscaping on the 2 peripheral sides of that fitness center, which really does help soften the overall physical impression and visual effect of that part of the site. On page 7, although these are a little bit difficult to see in your in these copies, the color schedule has been adjusted, lightening them up a bit on some of the colors so that it's not quite such a stark contrast. And then lastly, there's some discussion about some of the landscaping that we saw on the site that you'll see on page 8 that we thought they might want to consider incorporating some of this stuff because it is frankly well-established, mature landscaping that might still be easily integrated into their re-landscaping. And we've had some discussions with them on this, but when I last spoke with them, they were not interested in integrating that material. They really want to bring in new landscape material. So with this set of revisions, we are recommending approval. As you can see with the conditions that I noted, I believe, let me look really quickly. I think the applicant is here. Looking at,
Yes.
okay, good. Thank you, Tom, to answer any other questions you may have. And that completes my staff report.
Does the committee have any questions for the staff? I'm actually not seeing too many of the committee here. Okay, I have a question, Ken. Did they submit a revised color finish, samples of the actual paint sample colors? Because
No,
obviously,
I've not gotten actual paint samples on this particular project.
okay. So it's really hard for us to know how light the actual colors are or what the changes are.
Well, as I had shown on that last page, you can see particular, I think it's PT number 3. Let me just look at this a minute. I'm sorry, EF2. You can see has gone from a pretty dark gray to more of a light tan or beige. But the other colors, it's a little bit difficult to discern the actual differences. Maybe Tom can speak a little bit more to that question once you're done with questions of staff.
So just to clarify though, the EP3, PC, is it, yeah, PC1 and PT3 have all lightened as well.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, David, I don't have my script. Do we go to the public or we go to the applicant presentation?
We'd open it up to the applicant first, and then after the applicant has their presentation, we would open it up to anyone in the public.
Okay, thank you. So may we have the applicant make a presentation? Please state your name and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tom Young, and actually I'm going to defer to Michael Harper, who is our architectural consultant, and have him give a little bit of just an overview of the changes that have been made.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Harper. I'm an architect of Baskerville. First off, I want to thank Ken and the staff there. And thanks for the time this evening. We've been back and forth a couple of times, but I think we have it fairly close now. Ken laid out most of the changes fairly well. Just the landscape was one of the main concerns last time we had a meeting. We've gone through and added about 7,000 more square feet of plantings around the building, removing more of the turf. We still do have some square edges between the turf and landscape, but we've tried to soften that with some rock and mulch transitions between the grass and the final plant beds. We've tried to mix the plants up as much as possible. We've added some rock formations, a couple other things there. We've kept on page 3, we've done a couple of renderings so you kind of see the fitness center with the landscape around it. We've kept some of the original palm trees that were there around the space and just kind of worked in the new landscape around it. We thought that would block the HVAC unit pretty good. As far as the solar studies, I think we did 6 altogether, and we sent Ken, I think, the 2 interior ones for the east and west sides of the building. I agree with Ken, and we've reviewed it multiple times. You get about an hour worth of morning sun and about an hour worth of afternoon sun. What's not depicted here is there'll be solar shades within the space itself that can be operated by the individuals within the space for their comfort when they're working out. On the southern elevation, which faces into the interior courtyard towards the pool and spa, we still keep the shade there. It's a metal shade. it does really well. With the solar studies, we basically, during the winter month, we get about 5 weeks of about 4 to 6 hours of sun in that. We didn't think that was too bad. Your average temperature that in those winter months are about 72 degrees. We felt that was pretty reasonable. So for the colors, yeah, we originally were trying to match the colors of the brand. This is a brand hotel, so they had some colors selected that were kind of, match throughout the country. We went back, tried to go more towards a desert feel or a Palm Springs feel. I think the zoning says, something that kind of works into the natural landscape. So we took EF1, which was a white and is now more of a grayish white. EF2, which was a light gray, and turned it into kind of a tan. EF3 just went from a really dark gray, I would say a medium gray, to a light gray. The fiber cement panel, we went from a cedar to a redwood, which looks pretty good. And then the paint is basically, the PT3 is basically staying the same. We thought it did a good job, especially you can see in the rendering on page 5 of the staff report on the front. It does a good job. Definitely, I agree with Ken of blending with the existing hip roofs and the clay tile. So that's a quick summary. We only had a couple items there. I think we're still kind of outstanding there. A lot of it was landscape, and like I said, we've added a lot of extra landscaping in, trying to soften the edges where we can, just trying to beautify, get a little bit more landscaping into it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any comments from the public?
If anyone wishes to speak, you may do so by turning on your microphone and or camera and begin your public comment. You'll have up to 3 minutes. It doesn't look like we have any speakers, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the applicant? If you do, speak up, because I don't have everybody's picture on my screen. Yeah, review. Oh, here we go. That's better. I have a question for you. So on the fitness building on the south elevation, is on one rendering, it looked like, what is the shade there? Is that actually a roll down shade, or is that a little pergola? It was a little confusing because on the one rendering on A404, it shows a series of shadows, and I just wanted to get a little clarification on that.
It's a metal pergola, basically.
Okay. All right. And any other questions? If not, then we will close that and we'll have committee discussion. Anybody like to comment?
This may go back. I've got it.
Oh, member Shot Lockyer, I'm sorry.
I might take you up on your question for the architect there, actually. So over behind the fitness center, I think what I was suggesting, if you go to your page 4, And you're standing in the fitness center, so there's both of those images actually, I think bring up a good point. So is there, it doesn't look like any landscape's been added just outside the south facing windows of the fitness center there. And yet I saw what looked like on a survey drawing where there's concrete to be saw cut and removed to make room for a planter. But I don't see that depicted here on either of these two renderings. And I feel like when I look at these renderings, particularly the bottom one, I think, you know, it's up to you, and I'm ready to move on with this project here tonight, but I feel like you guys are missing an opportunity here to soften this place up a bit. And I look at all this hardscape and these hard surfaces here on your page 4 renderings. The outside view on the lower rendering there, and then the inside view. And it just feels like kind of a shame that you're standing inside the interior of the space and you're looking out and it's just this massive hardscape. And there's really no buffer, no screening, no real delineation between the interior and the exterior. There are no softening of that, I guess, this transition. So if you're inside the gym working out and you're just kind of in this fishbowl in there, and if you're on the outside, you know, it's just kind of this, just kind of a concrete mass all around here. And I think the effects of that on your perception as you experience that space are just kind of hard and somewhat depressing, actually. And I just feel like it's, for your own sake, you might want to take a look at that. It does not look like a very attractive place where I want to go wander down to the pool and spend some time. So I don't know that it's questions other than the first one where it looks like a discrepancy that civil drawings of the site plan looks like it's calling out some kind of saw cut for a planter, and yet not really shown.
There is a saw cut there. We have about a foot of area, between the saw cut and the new fitness center. So we didn't feel like there was much area to plant anything. I think we're just kind of showing it as turf. Definitely could go back to the landscaper and see maybe if there is an opportunity to put something in that foot space. I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to put some vertical vines or something on a little metal cage or something.
Maybe, like if you focus in on that page 4 of the staff report, where it shows those two renderings, I think you'll kind of see what I'm talking about from that interior view looking out across the pool courtyard. It appears to be quite a few palm trees, which I think that's helping a bit. I think in the foreground there, I see a table, some dining chairs and that kind of thing, where it seems like, man, that might be a place for some planting opportunity. Kind of, maybe that planting really thins out as the spa is close to the building there. If you need access on that north side of the spa, maybe you don't. Maybe they only get in from the south side, and that whole thing can become some planter there. And then from the exterior view, yeah, you've got those two tables there in the corner where, anyway, just those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Well, we're showing landscaping on the on both in this view. We're showing landscaping on the left and the right side of the fitness center. Inside the fence, of course, that's pool decking. I mean, it's possible to put some portable concrete planters with some type of foliage in there. But I think what we're trying to do is to maximize the pool deck space within the fence, and have the landscaping on either side of the fitness center. Now on the backside, you know, our intention was to, you know, as space permitted between the back of between the HVAC area and the wall and the parking lot to try to put some on either side, but we are a little bit limited, in the space between, between the fitness center and the parking area, given that we have moved the HVAC down to the ground level, which was your recommendation. I mean, I think I think that's a pretty good idea of how to soften things up.
Yep.
Okay. Member Walsh, I think you had a comment to make.
Yeah, I just, I realize this has been a protracted process, and it has moved in a far better direction. I just wanted to comment that I think that the scale and the proportion of the fitness center have gotten significantly better. And the key seems to have been the removal or the relocation of the mechanical equipment. Same thing for the front. I mean, it looks better. It's not at war with Spanish revival anymore. It seems to be far more cohesive in terms of the materials and the detailing, albeit simple. With that said, there are a couple little small things that I would comment on. The trellis that you have facing south off of the fitness center is very open. What we see here, and I realize this may not be all detailed to a gnat's wing, but that level of sun that still remains there could be problematic. It just seems to me that the more opaque, the more solid it is, it's going to work to your benefit. Number two, I would also agree with the pool courtyard. It looks bleak and hot. And if portable planters are the way to go, I guess, I don't know, in contemporary times, you really don't put umbrellas out in large hotels, I suppose, or any type of a shading device that would give some people relief. Even in March and April, it can be bloody hot, and this looks like a hot, large, uninterrupted surface there. Those are the only comments that I would, again, just kind of offer in a helpful direction, but it looks improved.
Well,
Thank you.
and I appreciate those comments, because we feel like we have taken it to where you guys were looking for us to go. As far as the pool deck, certainly there are going to be umbrellas and tables and chairs out there. We may
Yes.
not be showing them, but there's no way that you can have an area like this without that type of shade. So clearly it will be there. We provide a good amount of that type of amenity, and people are they're going to need that and want it, and it will be there.
Great.
Thank you. Member McCoy, any comments?
Yes, so I'm going to continue on the thread out in the entry area. Appreciate the extended landscaping that you've done. As you pull in the driveway on the east side, you've got an expansive lawn where you will make your first left. Behind that, it's a nice new planting area, but everything's very low. And it looks like both sides of the entry area, everything's very low. And that does draw attention to the hotel, and I understand you're trying to get the attention. I think some softness in there, some larger plants, perhaps a couple more Palo Verdes out in front. You spoke with staff and you're removing mature Mediterranean fan palms, which, as I look at the photo, they have gone above into the roof line. They've lived their useful life, but they are fantastic specimens, and those could be moved further out into the landscape and put to good use. Before they're cut down, you might want to consider that. So a little softening at the entry, and also the south parking, I'm sorry, not south, the east parking lot as you head back just past the entry, perhaps more Palo Verdes back towards the parking stalls. Just softening that whole front a bit, and it does not block any signage, and you won't lose the fact that nobody will miss the fact that the hotel is there. So that's my comments.
Thank you. And I'd like to commend the applicant also on the progress you've made. It's definitely much improved. I still struggle with the architectural expression of the stair towers. I think it still seems incongruous to me with the architecture of the building, but I understand that's a branding thing. I think the revisions to the colors potentially is an improvement. The landscape, I think the fitness center is much improved. I would agree with the comments about trying to get some way to soften it around the pool deck. And then I'd also just like to address the two comments staff has made and get input from the applicant, whether they're open to this or not. One comment was to consider a more naturalized curvilinear transition between the landscaping and the grass areas in the front, and if that's something you would be open to. It's particularly when you look at the landscape plan on the island closest to the street, it's particularly noticeable there that it could be, I guess that would be on the west side. It could be a little less harsh and a little softer transition. It would be the oval sort of right along Tahquitz Canyon and Hermosa at the corner. That transition right there, I think, could be enhanced by making it a little not quite so rectilinear and introduce a curve. And then the other question that other comment they raised was to put a concrete edge along the southeast corner of the property. So I just want to make sure we address those two items as a committee and get input from the applicant, whether they're open to that.
This is Michael Harper. I think we're open to that. I mean, I think we're open both of them. If that's the last two comments, and we can kind of move on. Those are easily kind of updated.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. So, are there any other comments from the committee?
Nothing to add from my side.
Oh, Steve, there you are. You disappeared.
All good. Nothing to add. They've made good progress to get this.
Great. All right. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve it with the two conditions planning staff indicated in their report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Member Pauline. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
With that, I think we will bring Chair Jakeway back.
Very much, Robert. So now we are moving on to item number 3. Chad and Tina Dyer, owners, requesting a major architectural application and administrative minor modification application for the construction of a 5,846 square foot single-family residence and a 576 square foot detached casita on a hillside lot located at 585 Camino Calidad. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Okay. The new single-family home is located on a vacant lot within the hillside area on the west side of Camino Calidad, in a almost entirely developed street. The applicant is proposing a 5,800 square foot house, a 576 square foot casita with a rooftop deck and a pool located in the rear. The proposed residence will be stepped in response to the natural topography of the site. The garage and adjacent music room will be more than 60% below grade and can be classified as a basement per our city code. This will allow staff to consider this proposed residence as a single-story building, which complies with the development standards in our municipal code. This slide that you're looking at right now shows the north and east elevations. The east elevation on the bottom is the side facing the street. This slide shows the south and west elevations, which will be facing the adjacent neighbors on the north and south. The proposed home will mainly consist of white stucco siding on all main walls and planters. Dark gray stucco will be the accent color and will be primarily located on the garage door and the exterior walls, perimeter walls. Dark bronze metal siding will be placed on some of the exterior walls on the east, west, and south elevations, and a cool champagne metal siding will be placed on the architectural feature you see facing the street right here. This is a sample of the colors up close. The casita will also consist of the same colors as the main residence. And these are the elevations on all four sides. Here's a section plan of the main residence and the casita. You can see that the garage and the music room are located primarily underground or below grade. The landscape they're proposing is consistent with the Coachella Valley Lush and Efficient Handbook. It's all proposed, it's all new. Actually, it's not all new. There's a lot of landscape that I believe that they're keeping. But the applicant is available for any questions. That's it.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have any questions from the committee for the staff?
Actually, can I add one more thing?
Sure, please.
So staff does recommend approval subject to one condition that they plant a tall landscaping along the southern property line to block, I guess, to create privacy between the two neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Any committee members have questions of the staff? Seeing none, is the applicant present? Please come forward or identify yourself. Your name.
Yeah, good
and you have
evening.
10 minutes.
Yeah, so this is Lance O'Donnell. Good evening, committee, and thank you, Alex, for that presentation. We'd be happy, looks like you guys have a long agenda. We'd be happy to plant a hedge on the southern boundary of our property to coincide with their northern boundary and the ficus hedge that they already have, but we'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Short and sweet. Do we have any questions from the committee for the applicant? Lance, I have a question. As we're looking at this front elevation on the left side on the south property line, there's a concrete ramp. It's just a straight shot from the corner of the gate up above down to the curb. Could there be something massaged on that a bit so it isn't so much just like it's almost like a drainage gutter, it seems.
Yeah, Tom, so we're going to get all manner of boulders pulled out of this thing, and we're doing, we're doing our best to approximate what we'll have in the front there. Yeah, we, again, we'd be happy to have a jog in that, or just some artful use of boulders to enhance and screen that pathway. But as you can imagine, the gardener, the pool all the maintenance for the house is going to be coming up there through that little end spine there. It coincides with some fairly mature landscaping on the adjacent property, so I don't think it's going to look like a golf cart ramp or anything, but we'd be happy to take another look at that and see what we could do to further screen it.
And my more significant question, excuse me, involves the roof deck. Is that something that was a requirement from your client? It seems like you've gone through a lot of hoops to try to make it happen by needing to lower the floor of the casita. It's got what appears to be almost a 4-foot high wall around it. So if you were sitting in the furniture there, you're not going to see off the roof at all. And if you do stand up, you're mainly seeing roofs. So I think the whole yard would be more elegant if the casita was up at the level of the pool. You didn't have those steps going down into that little recessed area that it sits in. What's the reasoning and necessity for all of that?
So, yes, several questions there. So we did have a request from our clients, San Francisco-based clients, that when they come down, it's both the day-night experience that they're really seeking to enjoy. So the night stars. We intentionally pushed the casita down, not to try to minimize sight lines from the casita onto the adjacent properties. It did have that effect to ameliorate the conditions from our client's property to the adjacent properties. But the sinking of the casita, there's a court in front of the casita that actually becomes the family gathering area. So there's a fire pit in there. There's a movie projection screen that goes on. So it was really to try to create a hearth around this fire pit and to have a really well-defined family gathering area. So it just worked out well that the casita was tied to that. There wasn't nothing in here was forced. It was really to try to, as I said, create that gathering spot.
Okay, thanks for the background. Any other committee members have questions for the applicant? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this item? If so, identify yourself and you have 3 minutes. David, I assume there's no more public comment?
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Committee discussion, and at the same time, if we develop more questions for the applicant, I think that's appropriate. Comments from the committee? Well, I had just a couple of comments. I can totally understand the reasoning for the roof deck and all. I think the landscaping that you're talking about along the southern property line should also be continued along the western property line, because this deck would look at the neighbor's pool, which is right over that rear property fence. In fact, the property to the west is probably more exposed because of the roof deck than the property to the south. And the other thing I would question, excuse me, you see it in this upper rendering. There's no window in the laundry room or in the pantry. And I'm wondering if a window would soften that side elevation a bit, so that instead of it being such a strong cube, if it had a little relief to it and gain the advantage of the natural light into those two spaces. That one corner is about all you'll see of this side of the building, because the rest obviously is marching down the side yard. And other than that, I think it's a great project. I like the combination of the stucco with the metal on the roof and carrying that down onto walls. And my other comment would be, only other comment would be on the front yard landscaping. You're calling out Washingtonia robusta for the 2 palm trees that are over near the south property line. I think it would be much nicer if they were a folifera, something that had more bulk, because the robustas tend to be so thin and grow so quickly. And those are my comments. Anybody else?
I will give one comment.
Yes, John McCoy.
The roof deck. I do know people who live in this neighborhood, and their comments often go to privacy concerns from hikers, people being able to look down into their yards. So being a good neighbor, reconsideration of the roof deck might be something that the owners want to think about. But other than that, I'm okay with the project.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a comment or two.
Yeah, Sean.
So I think when I look at the aerial map of this project and I look at that roof deck, it's a couple of things to appreciate about it. Is one, I think that Casita guest house is set far enough back from that rear property line, and in that sort of southeast corner there, or I guess the southwest corner, and the placement of the stairs up to the roof deck, and then if you look at the roof deck plan, where the plantings are and where the sitting area actually is, it's kind of well done in a way where it's not really a hangout that's directly overlooking the neighbor's pool and pool deck area. The roof deck plan kind of brings itself a little further to the east. I think if anything, you could enhance planting around the perimeter of that roof deck. If there's something shown there now, maybe something that would afford a little more privacy, for the neighbor. But I kind of feel like it's not too bad. And if it's going to be where it's going to be placed, I think it's pretty good to place it there, considering that the neighbor, at least to the west there, is their pool is kind of at the northeast corner. I don't know. I don't think it's too bad. Maybe some further planting along that south side of the subject property line to screen the neighbors to the south a bit. I think those were maybe the folks that had objection to. That's my comment on that. Other than that, I think the project's good also.
Thank you, Sean.
You brought up the potential for hedging around there also already, so I'm supporting that.
And I think, continuing with your comment, Sean, I think that the roof deck, it might be interesting if the wall around the deck that's on the north and on the east, the two that are facing into this client's property, if the walls there were made lower, so that from the deck you're experiencing, looking at the pool of the house and the yard that's around, it might, I'm not saying that's a requirement, I'm just saying it might be something to consider, and it would break the long unbroken line of that wall that's up on the roof. It might give a little more relief to it as you look at it from the own house looking back at the roof deck.
Mm.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Sean,
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the project as submitted with maybe a couple of those conditions for the hedging that we pointed out. And there was early one along the street there as well.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
That's from John McCoy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. We're now moving on to item number 5. San Jacinto Holdings, Mark Temple owner, for a major architectural application for the construction of a 4,365 square foot house on a hillside lot located at 502 La Mirada Road. Staff report, please.
Chair Jake,
I'm
wait,
sorry.
excuse myself. San Jacinto Hold is a client.
Okay. Are we still okay with our quorum? Yes,
We have 5 members.
great. Okay. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Let me share the screen. Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So as you mentioned, this is on La Mirada Road, and the property that you just looked at, this is kitty corner right behind it. So the aerial that's showing here is the end of West Ramon Road and La Mirada, where the trailhead starts to go up the Lake and Trail. So the lot is rectangular in size. Currently, right now, it's got landscaping and it's being well maintained, as you can see in these photographs. So the mature trees that are on the lot now will be saved along with the boulders and used as landscaping once the plan is done. So you'll see that the lot slopes from the south to the north slightly. And on this picture, there is an equestrian trail that runs behind this lot that will go between both of these lots where I'm putting the arrow right now. So there's a no-build easement for an equestrian trail, and they have set back the house so as not to affect that portion of the trail. So this is a proposal for a 4,365 square foot house. The maximum height of the property of the house is 18 feet. It is 12 feet at the setback lines, right where the garage is. The maximum height is 12 feet. As you can see, it's a 3-car garage with the pool in the front yard, and the house forms a courtyard with the pool. So the main portion of the house, including the kitchen and the great room, are in the center, bedrooms behind the garage, and then a casita off to the south. I'm sorry, the north end. And this shows the setback lines where they do meet the 25-foot setback. The house touches at the corner of the garage. There's an entry feature which is permitted to project into the front yard setback. And then the corner of the casita at the actual corner of Ramon and La Mirada meets the setback requirements. And then also in the rear, we mentioned the equestrian trail in the back. They are set back 15 feet from, actually 10 feet from the equestrian trail, the center of it. So looking at a floor plan, you'll see that, as I mentioned, the great room is in the center, and then the primary bedroom with the casita, the 3-car garage, and then the 2 bedrooms behind the garage. There's a slope plan. For the roof, the roofs are a series of shed roofs that slope towards the west to allow greater views of the mountains. The applicant has prepared a cross-section showing how the walls on the south property line, so there's a garden wall, a low retaining wall, and then wall, and a planter area, and then a garden wall as the property steps down towards West Ramon Road. The types of materials that they're proposing includes stucco, control joints in the stucco, raked foam. Colors are gray colors. I have a material board that I'll show you just briefly. And then there's a metal trellis on the rear portions with windows anodized glass. So here is the material board. This was not in your packet, so I just want to point this out to the AEC that this is a new exhibit that shows the colors that are proposed: an ice cube, a gray screen, and then another darker gray with the shadow block that will go around the front yard along the street, La Mirada, and then the standing seam roof. There also is a grading plan that is in your packet that shows the most recent grades, including how these retaining walls in the south property line and partially along the equestrian trail to the east. There is some landscape plans that show the type of hardscape that they're proposing, which includes several fire pits, the pole, and then the different proposed plantings that are to be used throughout. And this shows where the existing trees are to remain and the ones that will be transplanted, along with boulders along West Ramon Road. So Chair, that concludes my report. The applicant is available for discussion.
Thank you, Glenn. Questions from the committee for staff? Glenn, I have a question on the site plan. Adjacent to the garage, it shows mechanical equipment and pool equipment directly against the property line wall. Is that acceptable, or do we have a setback for mechanical equipment from the side property lines?
So there actually is a planter wall that, or there's a retaining wall about 3 feet, and then there's a planter area, and then there's another garden wall on top of it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, would the applicant like to give us a presentation, please? You have 10 minutes. Give us your name first and describe your project.
Mark Temple is the applicant. I'm the architect, Bob Tyler. Mark is here, but he's on mute. But I think Glenn did a good job of presenting it. We really wanted to take advantage of the views to the west, so we created that courtyard with the pool area in the front of the house, and just had a series of sloped shed roofs to really take advantage of that roof. There are some privacy concerns with the trailhead that comes down at the corner. So you'll notice on the Ramon side, there's not a lot of windows there. We tried to get privacy for the casita and the pool area at that point. And then just tried to blend in with the neighborhood with the balance of the architecture and the materials and colors. Did you want to add anything, Mark?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered it pretty good, Bob. Obviously, we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Public comments. Do we have any public comments from the audience on this project? David, do you see anybody?
I don't see anyone who's asked to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and ask questions of the applicant. If somebody does show up, we can always bump them in. Committee, questions for the applicant? I have a couple of questions. On the roof plan, it's very clear that the roof of the casita is a standing seam metal roof. But on the pitched roofs of the great room and the primary bedroom, what is the material on those two roofs?
It's proposed to be a TPO roof because those roofs are really not viewed from anywhere off the property, from either one of the street areas. So they're a TPO roof.
Is that like a membrane roofing?
Yes.
Okay. And then I've noticed in a number of places you call out raked foam. I think it's called raked foam.
No, it's raked stucco.
Or vertical raked foam. And also you call out 1 inch by 4 inch foam surrounds on some of the windows. I question that. I think the simplicity of just a plain stucco instead of the raked might make more sense, just to simplify how many different materials and shapes. But I really question the 1x4 foam trim. That looks like a little tract house trim that you throw around a Mediterranean window to me.
Well, the raked foam is probably more correctly identified as a raked stucco finish. And if you look at the color material board, you'll see we were just trying to get more texture and some more play with shadows to break down the mass of the home a bit. As far as the foam trims, I know that I don't have a problem taking those off. I don't know if Mark feels strongly about that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with that and probably is a good suggestion. But I do like the rake foam, and if they can look at that color board again, we do think that kind of adds a nice, texture change, I guess.
Sure, I'm not saying I'm totally against it. I was just curious as to your reasoning. Any other questions from the committee for Sean?
Yeah, well, I want to elaborate on what you're saying there, Tom, is I think in some of the places where they're calling out that 1x4 detail, if you go back to the floor plan and align those, what I'm worried about then is that could look really cheap if it just has a really flat surface without, with that window, clear anodized aluminum right out on the face of the facade there. And I don't know, maybe that's not an issue really on the street facades there.
Yeah, the street edge, we don't have that 1x4 trim. That was primarily on the rear and the side elevation, not the street side elevation.
Mm-hmm. Primarily, you said. But
Yeah, well, you can see the corner of Ramon and La Mirada. We're just using the vertical rake stucco, which does not have a foam trim on those sides. Then the windows that are set back at the pool area, it's hard to see on the exhibits, but you're seeing the anodized aluminum windows. It was primarily on the rear and the side yard where we just had less shadow play from the roof overhangs and the detailing on the front. But again, I don't think Mark or I have any problem removing that detail.
I don't even know that that's the direction I was going. I was thinking that maybe we're on places where it is facing the facade. So gotcha that get my bearings here without a north arrow. So I guess it's the north facade. I think that looks like it's clean with the raked surface there or some material there, but then in your sliders and particularly the clear story above that, which I think you are going to see from the street, La Mirada Road in the street corner, I think that has a somewhat cheap looking appearance when that clear anodized clear story is just sitting out there flush with the adjacent stucco. Even an inch offset, I think has a cheap.
It's all offset by 2 inches, but that's splitting hairs.
Yeah. I think so. What about double framing those west facing walls, that west facade there, not just the west facing walls, but that pool side, and popping those windows back? It was just an idea that I think keep that cheap tracky appearance.
Well, yeah, and I really felt that the roof forms were pretty strong, and that with those areas being simplified and held back, the double framing wasn't necessary, but I'm certainly not, not objecting to providing that where we don't have the rake stucco. So the windows into the great room that are held back at the patio edge, we could double frame those, and we could double frame the windows from the hallway and from the primary bedroom and along those areas. I'm not adverse to doing that at all.
Tom, I was kind of riding on the back of your comment there. So what do you think about that in relation to the removal of the 1x4 as a potential solution?
Well, I think the recessed windows would be a huge improvement. In fact, it's what you're showing on the western wall of the casita. So if you just took that same detail around the pool, I think it would give a lot more strength to it. And the other thing I would do is the window that's in the entry that's basically facing west, it just has a horizontal mullion where the window in the great room immediately adjacent to it has about a 1 foot thick, looks like it's a plastered header. I think they should match. I think that plastered header over the living room doors should continue into that window in the entry.
Yes, I agree with you.
And then one other question while we're right here, I agree with you that we don't see the roofs of those pitched roofs over the great room in the primary bedroom, but what we really do see is the bottom size of those roofs. What material is that? The ceilings of the patio.
The soffit.
It's stucco.
I'm sorry, you broke up. I didn't hear it.
It is stucco.
Stucco. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on the.
Yes, John Walsh.
The columns look to be tube steel, square tube, is it?
No, they're round.
They're okay, and they are what material?
They're a steel finish.
Just so it's a painted.
Yes.
Okay.
Painted metal.
In terms of the garage layout, as this elevation took shape, did you try anything else as far as the proportion, the nature of that material for the door, or was this kind of the direction you took from the beginning on it?
And actually the note is incorrect. They're proposed to be glass doors with metal frames. So that is incorrect. So they're going to be sandblasted glass and metal doors.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. Committee discussion. What are our comments and concerns? Anybody have anything else to add? Do we have a motion? Sean?
I'll make a motion to approve with the recommendations of the framing that we talked about along the facades there.
So I have.
We have.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
No, I was just going to read off what I have. If we can get a second, then I'll.
Okay, do we have a second? Then we'll have Glenn get the specifics for us.
I'll second.
Second by member Rotman. Okay, Glenn?
So recessed windows would be the same as the casita on the front facade. And then the plaster headers on the front facade to match on the West Ramon, or I'm sorry, the La Mirada side. And then there was a comment about the 1/4 inch foam. I didn't quite get that.
I think it was to remove the 1x4 frames, but that the vertical grooves were okay.
Okay.
Is that your understanding, Sean?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
You
nice
bet.
project.
Thank
Nice project for the city. Thank you.
You bet. We're excited.
Okay, now we have item number 6 under new business. Denise Berry, owner, requesting a major architectural application to construct a new 1,611 square foot single-family residence and an administrative minor modification application to reduce all setbacks of the development located at 105 West San Marco Way. Staff report, please.
Before we start, I need to recuse myself on this one.
That was Steve. Okay, thank you.
The new single-family home is located on a major thoroughfare, on a vacant lot in a major thoroughfare, North Indian Canyon Drive and San Marcos Way. It's highlighted in this outline, yellow outline on the left of the aerial. And the site plan is located on the right. The applicant is proposing approximately 1,100 square foot single family home with a swimming pool in the rear. The proposed home will mainly consist of a smooth dove gray stucco siding on all the main walls. The exterior walls adjacent to the main entrance will be a dark gray, and there will be a black brick wall, which will be placed on this, I guess, the same elevation as the front door, which will be painted a bright teal. The exterior perimeter wall is CMU block wall, and it will be a gray stacked stone. The windows will have a black trim and the roof will be spray foam white. The walls adjacent to the garage will consist of a redwood material. The next screen will show you the materials up close. The proposed landscape will have plants that are consistent with the Coachella Valley Lush and Efficient handbook. Major trees will be planted along Indian Canyon. I guess not major trees, but a lemon tree and a lime tree will be placed along Indian Canyon Drive, along with some landscape in the rear, concrete and river rock as well. So that concludes my report, and the applicant is available for any questions. Staff recommends approval as submitted.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Do we have any committee have any questions for the staff? Alex, I have just a clarification. The front of the house is on Indian, even though the front door is on the side street. Is that correct? And that's how the setbacks have all been calculated?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Sean.
Can you elaborate on it? I thought I heard you say setback reductions all the way around.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
You say the applicant's requesting a setback reduction on all four sides of this project? All four
Yes.
yards?
So technically the front is facing Indian Canyon. But the other side, so on San Marco Way, that would be considered a street side. It should be 20 feet, but they're requesting 18.5 feet. The rear, which is opposite of Indian Canyon, is at 14.5, should be 15. And then the interior side is at 9.5, it should be 10. But with the AMM application that they submitted, they can get those reductions. Oh, along with the front as well, because the front is a major thoroughfare.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I said along with the front as well, because the front is a major thoroughfare, it should technically be 50 feet back. But there's a provision in our code that states 25 is applicable as well with an AMM.
Do you want to elaborate on any of that, or that's it?
I think that's it.
Okay. Question for you though. When I look at the site plan, sheet A300, and I look towards the south, that looks like the south end of the residence. The only dimension that I see is a 9'6" distance from the property line to the water line of the pool. But it looks like the house is about 3 feet short of that. So this to me looks like maybe a 6'6".
You actually are correct. So I had asked for a new site plan, and it's actually 8 feet.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the distance between the residence and the property line will be 8 feet, which is consistent with our 20% reduction with an AMM.
So did they change their floor plan from what's shown here, and this is no longer valid?
No, they didn't change the floor plan, but they added that dimension. So that dimension was missing from this site plan.
It just doesn't look like it scales that way. Like you write 8 feet on there, but the wall of the house is clearly less than 8 feet from that property line. Just FYI. The garage, same thing, the west side of the garage. If that's 15.7.5, the dimension provided, which is from the property line to the face of the concrete driveway, the edge of the concrete driveway, then if I scale that garage, I don't know, 13 feet, 12 and a half. And what did you say that? Rear yards going from 15 of a setback?
Rear yards are 15 feet, yes.
By the way, I guess I should have started with this. Is this our, are we, I suppose we're weighing in on the application as it's presented, which is the setback reduction, but does anybody want to clarify that, staff or Tom or otherwise? Are we chiming in on the thoughts and the setbacks here?
So, Mr. Chair, I would just respond that the purview that you're reviewing this application under is the architectural review guidelines in section 9404. Staff has indicated where there are minor deviations being requested. But really the purview that you're considering tonight is this criteria in 9404, which we've outlined on pages 3 and 4 of your report.
Is that a no, David?
You can certainly look at the setbacks and how much, how the building is designed relative to the edge of the property, the composition, the harmonious materials, harmonious, in terms of saying you don't like a 25-foot setback or an 8-foot setback, that cannot be a basis for denial.
Okay, roger that. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I don't have any more questions. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Sean. Question, Alex. I notice in the staff report, it says that the applicant will be required to develop sidewalks per the engineering department. On this site plan, it appears that the new sidewalk is only along Indian Avenue and it does not wrap around West San Marco. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay.
And we have Mr. Manjarres as well, who is here with us, our engineer, if there are specific questions related to the city's requirements for sidewalks.
Why is there no requirement for the sidewalk on San Marcos?
Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. There has been a couple of projects on San Marco, and the project that is directly adjacent to this to the west, we had proposed that sidewalks and curbs and gutters go in, and we had quite a few requests from the neighborhood that the sidewalks be deferred to some far off future date that will probably never happen, but the sidewalks and the curb and gutter along San Marco were deferred to a covenant, and then that was supported by the city engineer. But we did not defer the sidewalks on Indian, being that it is a major thoroughfare and there is sidewalks adjacent to them to the south.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, if the applicant is here, give us your name, please, and you have 10 minutes to describe your project to us.
Doesn't look like they're here.
Okay. Well, then we can just continue our discussion. Are there any members of the public waiting to discuss this project? I want to point out we did receive a letter from the neighborhood association in favor of this project. Okay, let's just get some comments then from the committee. My initial reaction is that it's a tough lot because it's so small and being on the busy street. I think they're doing probably the best that they can. I think, though, that the elevation facing Indian, the elevation of the building is so plain, and they've got that long garden wall along there. I think the quantity of the landscape along Indian needs to be significantly increased, and we need to know the sizes of what they plan to install, because right now it just says 2 museum Palo Verdes, but no indication of a size and nothing else along there. I think it should be a hedge or something that softens that project and kind of buffers it from Indian Avenue. The setback reductions, I don't have a problem with, especially because the south side is right up against the old racket club where it's probably gonna, might be a parking lot or who knows what that might be, but it's not a single family home. And if you could look at that aerial photo, you can see 2 lots to the left, there's a tennis court, but the building adjacent to the tennis court looks like it's almost touching the property line. So I think it's just kind of is what's happening in that neighborhood. Any other comments?
I'll comment.
Yeah, John.
I concur with what you said. I think on the Indian Canyon side, something more than just a hedge. I think a landscape plan for both street frontages. The quantity of white rock, it's sort of a yin and yang landscape with the dark DG and the white rock. Then it's got this random divider going through it with a few plants popping out of the divider. Plants on each side of the divider are trying to tie it together, but you've got a contrast set up. So it feels very ill-defined. The property corner where you've got the new ramp coming in could certainly use something to a little relief from the property looking at that direction. The palm trees flanking the driveway on the west side of the driveway, that's the only thing you have out there. Certainly more landscaping is needed, and probably back the palm trees off of the driveway a bit. These have aggressive roots and they will lift that driveway. That would be good for the client to note. But yeah, the landscape across the front and the side need further development.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm just, I'd like a couple comments.
Let's go with Sean first, and then we'll go to Robert. Sean?
Hi, Robert.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just agreeing with what John's saying about the landscape needing some further development, planting, design along both street facades. That looks very underdeveloped right now. That's all.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, and I'm just in concurrence with the comments made. I think the 2 primary street elevations are very plain, and and I think enhanced landscaping will really make this a much better project. Also, the starkness of the white ice rock has never been a favorite of mine in the desert, and I think if you got a white house and a white rock, and and you got black accents, I just think it's a little bit too stark a contrast. So I might suggest that they go with a little softer color in the choice of their rock, and definitely enhance the landscaping along Indian and as well as the front of the house.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I have a
Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean?
So I'm looking at the perspective views of the project, which I'm on sheet A601 here. And it says elevation northeast, so it's the northeast corner of the building. That sloped roof, I think, that's kind of going to be a prominent view from Indian Canyon. And I'm wondering if any of the vent pipes and that kind of typical mess can be avoided there, number one. Two, not quite sure if that's actually reality, if that roof can transition through that wall material there without having some kind of transition material or line across there in reality. Not requesting that, just saying I don't quite believe the model here, the simplicity of the model. And also wondering if do we know what that roof material is on that slope portion? That's a question.
It's spray foam white, it says on sheet A600.
Maybe that's the whole roof.
Mhm.
If that's the portion of that roof needs to be, that's going to be facing Indian Canyon Drive. If that can be some kind of enhanced material like metal or standing seam or something. That, the roof fencing, the roof material would be my recommendations. Avoid any venting at all visible through that slope roof.
I think those are great comments. Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, what we might do is continue this item to a future date with comments to the applicant since they were not here to respond.
I think that's a very good comment. So the main comments that we would send to the applicant are to enhance the landscaping on both street facades, to look at a different color for the rock in the garden, and to enhance the roofing material on the shed roof that is visible from Indian Avenue, making sure that roof vents and mechanical items are not visible from the street. Anybody on the committee, did I miss anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to continue this item?
I'll make that motion.
Sean, a second?
Second.
Second from John McCoy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to our final item, number 7. Pinnacle View LLC owners for a major architectural review for the construction of a 4,469 square foot single family house on a hillside lot located at 2277 Morning Vista Drive, Zone ESASP, Planning Area 4 in the Pacific Palisades Specific Plan.
Mr. Chair, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, but the applicant for this item has asked for a continuance, so we would request that the committee remove this item from the agenda, and we will consider it on a future meeting.
Okay, we will do that. We don't need to make a motion or anything. That's just a done deal, right?
Right, we'll note that the item was removed from the agenda.
Okay, then the last item is something I'm going to let David talk to the committee about, an ad hoc subcommittee that's being formed to talk about parklet design, the little restaurant expansions going out into the street.
Correct. So this item is just really a request to get 2 volunteers to help staff and advise the council on the new parklet design guidelines that we'll be preparing for council consideration. As you may recall, on June 10th, the council had some discussion on the item and gave staff some direction. So there will be some guidelines that we will be preparing based on feedback from an ad hoc subcommittee that would comprise of 2 AAC members and various community members, stakeholders, so that we get, a good breadth of input from, designers as well as people in the business community to get an understanding on what works, what the city would like to see, and ultimately for city council to consider. So with that, I'll let you all decide who wants to be on it. I expect the committee would be for about 2 months. So it'd be roughly about a 2 month, maybe 3 month at most commitment. And I think you would have probably 2 to 4 meetings during that span. But that could change. I have to confer with Mr. Fag on some of those specific details. So I welcome anyone who would like to volunteer.
I'll rush to the exits.
David, I have a question on this. It sounds like much of that is going to be landscape centric, or at least a portion of it. That's my perception of it. Is that right?
It's going to be more than just the landscaping. It will include potential design of hard improvements. So if there is, for instance, the exterior of the K-rails that we see on the street, what those might look like.
Right.
Any potential shading devices that might be used within those spaces. So soft and hard improvements. And then potentially process and timeframe recommendations.
And where does this work its way to? Some type of guidelines or?
Yeah, so we have some guidelines that we've seen from other municipalities who have done this before in other cities. So we're starting with some of those as kind of the foundation, and then, obviously we want to tailor it to Palm Springs specifically. So that's kind of the direction we're going with it.
Okay, thank you.
And who's allowed to apply for a parklet? Is this primarily restaurant oriented, restaurant design?
Primarily, yes. But I think the specifics would be finalized in the guidelines.
Okay. At this time, it's primarily restaurants who are permitted to do this.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there anybody else out there doing it other than restaurants at this time?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some other retailers that have used the space. So I think, again, all of that stuff would be kind of hammered out.
Okay.
Cool.
So is this seen as a sort of a permanent extension of the temporary outdoor seating areas that came up through COVID?
Correct. Yeah. So this is more of.
I was hoping some of those would go away because they're not exactly.
Well, that's kind of the plan, is that, for the ones that we like, we would like, encourage that type of design, or a design that we think is,
it has merit.
Yeah, acceptable to Palm Springs. We want to have some sort of guidance so people understand that, if they're going to be paying a bunch of money to try and avoid paying money to improve these spaces, we want them to have some understanding that it needs to be appropriately an appropriate design.
And so the ultimate goal of this committee is to provide recommendations to the city council, who will make the final rules. Is that correct?
Yes.
Anybody interested?
I have some opinions on it, certainly, and including flooring materials and details, transition from curbs to floors, planters, K-rails, not having them turn into looking like a school art project. I've got a lot of opinions on it, David, but I think I'm just gonna let people down if I commit to something else, which is swamped, and I'm actually putting off new projects for months now, so can't do it.
Anyone else up for the task?
Me, I am too busy.
Okay. We might have to volunteer one of our absent members, so then that will leave us one left.
Dan, get Dan to do it.
Actually, 2 of our members who are absent.
Oh, there you are.
That will assure full attendance at future meetings.
Attendance as a weapon.
David, could you talk with them
Yeah.
individually via telephone and see what we can work up, and then we'll finalize something in the next couple of days?
Yep. That sounds good.
Okay, any other comments from the committee members on any items? Okay, our next meeting, David, is this correct? It's on Tuesday because of the July 4th weekend.
Yeah, correct. So July 5th is the observed holiday for 4th of July. So the next thing would be July 6th. And at that meeting, we will be the Architectural Review Committee.
Oh, right.
So we are moving into the new
Okay.
process after July 1.
So then I am going to adjourn the final meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee of the City of Palm Springs after we get Sean's comments.
It's actually just a quick question. Is there any talk of getting back together in the same room with one another, or are we still coasting on the Zoom format?
I would like us to be back in the same room again, but we're still waiting to get some final direction from administration and council. So once we have that, we will, as soon as I know, I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in July.
Yeah. See you all. Bye.